Well, let's get into it. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and media and politics columnist for The Hill. Boy, that was a tough technical feat, but the team got it done. And I'm grateful because there was a lot coming out of this. First of all, when you hear the sheriff from Rockingham County in North Carolina talk about the number of overdoses and the way that his people, his citizens that he's servicing, Rockingham is not, you know, the size of an enormous county, but it's young people are being taken advantage of, really. They've got a problem with addiction, but the drugs that are flowing in, I mean, China's got this. Like, they are working this over. They're killing our people.
And remember, that's where fentanyl is created in China. Then it goes to Mexico, comes across our border, and then into our communities across the country. More than 100,000 people died last year from overdoses. And the leading cause of death, if you're between the ages of 18 and 49, not suicide, not COVID, it's overdoses. This is a catastrophe, and we barely hear the administration talking about it, Harris.
Well, and when you attach China to it, China's government, not the Chinese people, but the communist government there, who hates us so much, that they would keep secret COVID-19 until they could vacuum up all the PPE that they could at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, this is evil. Well, now they're hitting us this way. I don't believe in coincidences. I think you do hit people when they're down, and they're hitting us.
And there are high school students, for example, as you mentioned, young people dying, not because they think they're taking fentanyl, they think they're taking, say, oxycodone, and it's laced with fentanyl.
And it's laced, that's right. What I mean, yep.
So when that's happening, I would just think that we have a czar for everything. We should have a fentanyl czar at this point. The problem...
Well, we have a border czar. This is happening at the border. They want to wipe away Title 42.
Who is that border czar again? Kamala Harris.
The Vice President of the United States.
When was the last time you heard her say the word border, talk about the border, talk about the drug crisis? I mean, you could find Liz Cheney at Mar-a-Lago before you find Kamala Harris in front of a microphone talking about this sort of thing. That was organic. That just came to me. That was weird, huh?
All right. I'm glad you were here to watch that with me, and we could talk about it a little bit. I want to get to this. The White House on Joe Biden, the president now, damage control again. For the third time, he raised the possibility of U.S. military conflict with China if China decides it wants to invade Taiwan. Watch this.
Very quickly, you didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made.
The president's comments sparked outrage from Beijing. The White House, with yet another walkback, said this, quote, "As the president said, our policy has not changed. He reiterated our commitment under the Taiwan Relations Act to provide Taiwan with the military means to defend itself." So in other words, we're going to treat them the way that we're treating Ukraine. We're going to help them fight their own fight. But that's not what the president said. Newt Gingrich with this interesting take.
It's a little strange to see his own White House kind of walking him back. He's the president, they're not. I think that all of his key people are hardline left-wingers who are terrified of the world. I thought Biden was right and his staff is nuts.
Joe.
Well, I've seen this characterized as a flub by the president, but now this is 3 times he's made the same flub. In August of last year, October of last year, and then this past weekend, he said without ambiguity that if China invades Taiwan, then we will engage them militarily. China has an active military personnel of more than 2 million people. And all President Xi hears is what the American president is saying, not people at the White House clarifying what he's saying. This, again, it was funny sometimes when Joe Biden had gaffes in the past. Now you're talking about our national security. So when he says one thing and the White House says another, that sort of mixed messaging inspires no confidence from the American people.
Why can't he clean up his own messes?
Well, I think he believes what he says. But he should be then reprimanding last August.
So are they lying or is he?
I think he's saying what he actually feels, right? But then whoever's in charge at the White House is saying, no, this is actually what we're really doing. In other words, who's in charge? That's the question.
That's what I want to know, because somebody's got to lie to make that happen. Like,
correct.
You can't have 2 opposite things be true at the same time, and there are only so many times that you can be wrong. Like you said, this is third. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and by the way, Joe Biden in the past has been wrong many times on foreign policy. Remember what his own defense secretary in the Obama-Biden administration said, Robert Gates, quote, "Biden has been wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. So if the president's going on his instincts right now, take on China if they go into Taiwan, send our military in, in the past, that hasn't worked out too well,
Yeah.
according to his own defense secretary years ago.
Whew, okay, and there's the little thing about NATO, and we don't even have time to get into all of it. There's just so much there. But I don't care what he believes. I want to know what we're going to do. Because his words don't matter to me if the White House can't even be in concert with what he's saying. We don't know what action they would take.
So let's hear from Lloyd Austin, and let's hear from the defense secretary.
Oh, I think we got to go deeper on this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. President Biden has hit a dubious milestone, more than 100 days without a sit-down interview with the media. He has taken questions, as you know, from reporters, even in recent past. But his last one-on-one sit-down with a member of the press was February 10th. With NBC's Lester Holt ahead of the Super Bowl. The Washington Examiner reports that since taking office, President Biden has given only 23 media interviews, and at the same point in their presidencies, Donald Trump had done 95, Barack Obama had done 187. Barack Obama had a very friendly media in the beginning as well, so spending spotlight time probably wasn't that painful. The way that some of the Pentagon press briefings after Afghanistan's horrible withdrawal happened, with the death of our 13 military men and women at the gates of Kabul airport, deaths rather, it hasn't been as easy for Biden perhaps as they thought it was going to be. Lester Holt even hit him.
That was the whole turning point last August, and that withdrawal. That's when the president's poll numbers really begin to go down, and then inflation hit, and then crime continued to skyrocket, and the border continued to get worse. So that's why he's gone down. It's a lose-lose situation for the president's handlers in terms of, do we put him out there or don't we? If they put him out there, then we see the cleanups on aisle 5 like we've talked about. Or he may say things that are profoundly dishonest. I mean, Harris, just last week, he said that there was no vaccine when he entered office, and then literally there's him getting a shot in the arm a month before he took office. And then he also said that the best way to lower inflation is to raise taxes on corporations, which any sane or sober economist will tell you, no, that's not how it works. So when he speaks, he says things that are either misleading or dishonest, and when he doesn't speak, he looks afraid. And we're in an election year. And when you can't put the president of the United States out, the one who got 81 million votes, out in front of the American people, you look like you're running from something.
Well, the White House says they want to put him out to help those Democrats in states. I don't know who wants him to come along with those poll numbers. We'll wait and see what the schedule is. See who's going to take that hit first. See how it works out for them.
I have a feeling the Democrat in Ohio who's running is not going to take that invitation, just like Stacey Abrams didn't when they went down there to talk about voting rights.
And we called her from the Faulkner Focus, and she wouldn't, you know, her staff couldn't tell us what she was doing outside of meeting the President of the United States on the tarmac a few months ago.
That's right.
But she wasn't meeting him. She was busy. Joe Concha, thank you, and thanks for being here while the sheriffs are speaking.
I love that color on you today, by the way.
Thank you.
Very May-like.
Wow. All right.